Today on Light of the Word with Pastor Ray.
You shall sound an alarm with the trumpets, and you will be remembered before the Lord your God, and you will be saved from your enemies. Another promise to us. When that trumpet blows, he goes and fights for us. When you blow that trumpet in your prayer time, when you blow that trumpet in thy kingdom come, thy will be done, I'm going to come, I'm going to fight for you. And in my perfect timing, I will answer in return. It's not the answer, it's the promise and the peace that you've heard.
Open your heart to us, Lord, so we can know your word. We come before you, Jesus. Speak to our hearts as we discover your love for us. How wide, how deep, how far. Pour into us so we can learn to follow. One surrender at a time. You have made the way for us to know you, a path that's straight and right. By the light of the word.
When I think of a trumpet today, I go back to high school marching band. But in C.S. Lewis's series, The Chronicles of Narnia, Susan is given a horn to blow should she need help in an emergency. When Susan uses this horn in a dire circumstance, Asian comes to her defense and fights for her, along with a host of soldiers. In today's message, Pastor Ray reminds us that we don't have to fight battles on our own. We need only call upon God, our conqueror, to fight for us in our time of need. Well, let's join Pastor Ray in the book of Revelation chapter 8 for today's edition of Light of the Word.
I got to do a Zoom call with a Bible school in Nepal. And my passage was Ephesians chapter 3, verse 1 through 7. And I started with verse 1 and spent most of my time there. Paul, a prisoner of Jesus Christ, for you Gentiles. And what I shared with those students, because the word that spoke, Paul, a prisoner of who? Jesus Christ. Wait, Paul's under house arrest when he writes this. Why is he under house arrest? Because Rome has arrested him, trumped up charges from the Jewish synagogue leaders there in Jerusalem, and he's now finding his way. He's on his way to stand before Nero. And yet he's writing the book of Ephesians, which is the Swiss Alps of the New Testament, of God's love and his grace and his mercy, making one body and redeeming and rescuing, just amazing stuff. And yet Paul writes, and he says, Paul, a prisoner of Jesus Christ. There ain't no way that he said, hey, I'm a prisoner of Rome. We don't read of him complaining, man, I'm on trumped up charges. This is so wrong, man. I'm serving Jesus and I end up in prison. He goes, I'm a prisoner of Jesus Christ. And it was beautiful to share with them as I shared with you, and I share with myself first. I have to eat it first, to partake of it first. I go, man, who I am a prisoner of will determine what, if any, prison I'll ever be in. As I will say, who controls your situation will determine if your situation controls you. And I know that Jesus Christ is controlling my life. I know, and when John 19 and Jesus stood before Pilate, and Pilate in his arrogance thinks that he has some type of power, he says, do you not, you sit there, you don't speak, do you not know I have the power to crucify you or not? In the next verse, Jesus says what? You have no power except what has been given to you from above. And I know and we know there is no power on this earth that can touch us, man, government, or program, except what God has allowed. And no matter what situation we enter into, I can enter into, and I go, I know I am here under the perfect will. Even if I've made a mistake, God's like, I'm going to use this in your life. There's no power except what I allow to come. Who controls your situation will determine if that situation controls you. And here's these 7 churches are going to have waves of persecution coming against them, and yet they can sit there and go, God's heard our prayers. And now he's casting our prayers back to earth, saying, here comes my kingdom. And this is what the true beginning of him establishing his kingdom is, because now what we read is supernatural events that are not natural occurrences such as war and the likes and the resultants of war. But before we get there, there's still a word that God speaks that for us we can kind of pass through until we think again, who's reading this before us 2,000 years ago. Verse 6, so 7 angels who had 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Must have been quite the sight. Amazing consideration of what's happening here. For us, we go, 7 angels, 7 trumpets. Whoa, man, this is mighty. For them, they don't have the New Testament. They don't have the book of Romans. This is the time it takes for written scrolls to get replicated and pass through the empire and those years upon years. Oh, the blessings that we have. Put it on our phones, walk around with it in our pockets and the like. But for them, all their words tag back to what they would have been studying and what was available, Old Testament. 800 allusions, some direct, 800 in these 400 plus 404 verses, I believe, of Revelation. 800 of them have some type of allusion back to the Old Testament. And trumpets and number 7, great allusions and tie back. Joshua chapter 6, heading into Jericho. You know the story. March it 7 times, blast it 7 times, and watch the walls fall. What 7 trumpets mean to these readers, especially these 7 churches, and what should mean to us as well is, wait a minute, I ain't got to fight. I'm not the one who has to knock the walls down. All I got to do is march by faith and let the trumpet blast, and I'll watch the walls come falling down. And this is what these readers could be. Oh, when he sounds the trumpet, God's showing up to do something. Numbers chapter 10, here's what he says for them when they go to war. Now I'm going to engage you, and you're going to go and be part of the war. Numbers 10, verse 9. When you go to war in your land against the enemy who oppresses you, then you shall sound an alarm with the trumpets, and you will be remembered before the Lord your God, and you will be saved from your enemies. Another promise to us. When that trumpet blows, he goes and fights for us. When you blow that trumpet in your prayer time, when you blow that trumpet in thy kingdom come, thy will be done, I'm going to come, I'm going to fight for you. And in my perfect timing, I will answer in return. It's not the answer, it's the promise and the peace that you've heard. Leviticus 25, verse 9, a great trumpet. Then you shall cause the trumpet of Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the day of atonement. You shall make the trumpet to sound throughout all your land. When that trumpet blew, year Jubilee, every 50 year, you know what happened? All debt was canceled. Everything was wiped clean. And that's the picture of what the trumpet blows for us. All of our debts paid. Everything's wiped clean. And so when these people would read this, they'd be like, oh, the trump of God is nothing but power of God. And so now they're going to read, and so too will we. But I'm going to hit these at high marks because the pain and suffering speak for themselves of what's going to happen here with these 7 trumpets that begin verse 7, the first trumpet. The first angel sounded, and hail and fire followed, mingled with blood. And they were thrown to the earth, and 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. This is coming from heaven. This is coming from the hand of God, per se, with the angels that he has enlisted to carry these things forth. And here comes hail, which is liquid water, and fire, which is vaporous fire. But here's something that's liquid and striking to me. They're mingled with blood. I have no answer. I just find these things. I go, well, where did the blood come from? It's blood. The more I read the Bible, the more I read the book of Revelation, the more I always just go, it's literal. It says, unless there's something that makes me go, that clearly says this is allegorical. So there's blood. Where did the blood come from? Is it the blood of the Lamb? Is it the blood of the saints who have been martyred that we read last month? Is it the blood of all the sacrifices on the altar for all the years, a foreshadow of the Lamb of God who would take away the sin of the world? I don't know, but then I come to, is it visible? When this strikes, does the world look and go, what is this blood? There's just blood spattered all over the place. What is this? Then the other thing, I sit and I wonder. I'm just speculating and wondering. I definitely don't know. Was there 30 minutes of silence on earth Did the earth think it's over? These 6 seals that they wouldn't know what they were, wow, there's peace. Man, if you've ever been through a hurricane, and I've been through a few in Florida, when that hurricane passes, it is a peace that you can't imagine. I mean, when you're in the midst of a hurricane and you're watching the raging of the sea and, things flying through the air and shaking and rattling, and when that hurricane passes and with its circular, it just takes all that out. It takes the energy out. It takes the air out. And the ocean becomes this sea of glass, and everything it's the calmest calm that I've ever experienced on earth. And it's after a hurricane. And I sit and I wonder as we read this and we look at it, is it possible that there was 30 minutes of silence? Did the world think, we've got through it, we made it through? I don't know. But then here comes thundering, here comes lightning, here comes hail, here comes fire as these things start to unfold very quickly and sequentially, I believe, as they're poured out on these things and they come and they're hitting, and man has to be shaken out of whatever calm and peace they thought. And here comes these things. And the first one said it's going to take 1/3 of the trees. In the original language, the trees are trees, but they're also very specifically speaking of fruit trees. And then the grass, it says all the grass, but the grass, it means green things, and it could be wheat and barley and these type of things. And so what we have here is we see this first trumpet come, and there's just this, you take 1/3 of the trees of this world, guess what happens real quick? It gets real hard to breathe, because we need trees for the cycling of oxygen. So the impact of trees. Now, if we read the 6 seals and the wars and famines and all these things, then all of a sudden you start knocking even further down on fruit trees and barley and wheat. The famine of the world just exponentially expands. And so we see these things, but don't miss grace. We need a healthy fear of the Lord as we read this of, man, you are holy. Holy, holy, holy. Silence was only interrupted, but it really just streamed out even louder. Here's a holy God. He's stepping up. It's time to do something. But don't miss grace, because we're not reading 1/3, or we're only reading 1/3. What we're not reading is one whole. Every fruit tree, every tree in the world destroyed. Pretty much wipe out every tree in the world. We're not going to be able to breathe. And yet God in his grace, he comes and he brings this great grace. The second trumpet now comes. Verse 8, then the second angel sounded, and something like, so it's something like a mountain. It's not a mountain. Is it like a great fish that God prepared for the day of Jonah? But there's something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and 1/3 of the sea became blood, and 1/3 of the living creatures in the sea died, and 1/3 of the ships were destroyed. Now it just magnifies itself even more as we look at these things, and we see this second which represents, remember, Egypt. We're going to see this correlation to the plagues of Egypt all the way through our study, and this would be like the first plague of that we see in Egypt with the river becoming blood and the likes. But here you come, and now this big mountain-like thing that obviously has some type of fire with it or produces, and it hits the earth. You ever look at the moon? You see all those craters on the moon? You know what those are? They're meteorites hitting the moon. I'm not saying these are meteorites. What I'm saying is you can actually see the impact of meteors on the moon. Well, this is what this is going to be like, some impact on the earth, and it's going to definitely shake it and rock this whole world. But once again, what we see is we're going to see 1/3 of the living creatures in the sea died, and 1/3 of the ships were destroyed. The world's going to keep going in this tribulation period. Even those 6 seals, it's not over. It's just going to keep going. Man's going to keep trying to bridge it and keep and carry and say, we can get through this. We got this great man who's trying to lead us through these type of things. But when you take away fruit and you take away barley and wheat and these type of things, there's a famine on the earth. But you know where you can still go? You can still go to the ocean. You can still fish. You can go into the streams and catch. And that will become one of the great staples of food is what's in the waters. Well, now 1/3 just been hit. And now famine's going to expand even more. How many people woke up today and were thinking about plankton? What type of Christians are you? You didn't wake up and pray for plankton this morning? You know, like, and scientists differ, but the number's significant. 20, 50, 80. I think I'll just go in the middle around 50. You know, 50% of our oxygen is generated through the plankton in the oceans, in the water. So now you got trees that are 1/3 burned up. Now you got 1/3 of what would be an impact to the plankton. Now it's getting even harder to breathe. And then you complicate and compound these things is man's going to keep going. There's a great economy in the ocean way of food. Now that's going to impact famine even more so. And you know what else? When you knock out 1/3 of the ship, their military ships, their pleasure ships, whatever, those type of things, well, a lot of them are going to be oil cargo ships. You're still going to need oil to keep this world going. The climate change ain't going to work. We should just save our money right now as a country. But anyways, clean energy and stuff, it's going to be oil, and we're going to need it. We're going to need it to power our vehicles. We're going to need it to power these power plants and all these type of things. Well, now this is impacted. And so you just see the compounding over and over, and we see this, but still, once again, 1/3, not one whole. God in great grace. You know, God speaks that there's a world that we're reading is rejecting him in this tribulation period. And I'm sending you wake-up call after wake-up call. I still extend grace to you, that you can come to my throne of grace. And you know what? He speaks that to you today. I am letting things happen in your life so that I can get your attention, just to know that I am God, and that I love you, and that I see you. I've heard your prayers. I see you personally. I'm trying to get your attention that things aren't always just going to keep going the way you think they're going to go. And I'm trying to speak to you now, because at some point, whether it's age, accident, or circumstances, we will stand before the throne. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 10 says, in the dispensation of the fullness of time, that he's going to gather all things before the throne. We're all in this flow into before the throne. And I just pray, you know, may we come to this throne and just know I can come in full confidence that I can stand before you, not in my own merit, but because of what you've done. He's trying to get attention, and yet still many won't. And then here comes another one, 3rd trumpet. Then the angel sounded, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch. So it's like a torch, whatever this looks like. I mean, it looks like a meteorite to me, but, you know, whatever it is, I guess if it was a meteorite, he'd say. And it fell on 1/3 of the rivers and on 1/3 of the springs. So now here's the impact to drinking water, air and water. The name of the star is wormwood. 1/3 of the water became wormwood, and many men died from the water because it was made bitter. So now we have the impact of the water. And so here we see again God's great grace. It's not a whole number, it's a partial number. God is knocking down everything that man takes for credit, including me and you. I take this for granted. We can even take credit for some of these things. And all these things that we take for granted. I woke up and I have the air to breathe. I have this water to drink. I have food. Wake up and open a refrigerator and there's food in it and antibiotics and medicine and these type of things. And God is saying, I'm just going to get your attention in my grace. I'm not going to give a whole number. I'm going to give 1/3 because I still wish none should perish, but all should seek repentance. But man can just take so much for grace and think that we've arrived through science and technology and whatever this may be. And I'm going to tell a joke. You know you're not funny when you have to announce, I'm going to tell a joke. So this is a joke, but it's fitting to me. As man has come to their great achievements in science and technology, they've come to this place that they go, we don't need you anymore. We've arrived. We can do all that you can do. We have the same power as they stand before God. And God says, oh, really? Yes, we have so much. We have the technology. In fact, we have so much technology, we can create man ourselves now without any help from you. Oh, really? Well, let's just have a little contest there of man creating then. They go, bring it on. God says, you're up. Show me what you got. And they go, we're going to show you how we can create man like you did back in the garden out of dirt. And God says, show on. And so they go over and they bend down. They grab a handful of dirt. And God says, whoa, hey, you got to bring your own dirt. Anything and everything. Man creates nothing out of nothing. Only a God can do that. And here we see God saying, I'm going to knock down all these things in your life. And for us, there's a healthy fear, and we see great grace. And then verse 12, then the fourth angel sounded, and a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, a third of the stars, a third of them were darkened, a third of the day did not shine, and likewise the night. You know, Mount St. Helens disrupted our weather for like 2 weeks. And where's Mount St. Helens? Like 3,000 miles from here. But it went through we talked about this last week of fires in Canada covered our sun down here for weeks. Now, this is supernatural that's happening, but however it happens, it's going to cover the moon and it's going to cover the sun. Some would say a nuclear exchange. 100 nukes exchanged, it's been determined, would do that through the whole world. And it's called a nuclear winter. I don't think God needs any help. This is supernatural. So what's happening here is supernatural. I don't believe it's going to be a nuclear exchange, but here's the point. How warm is it on a cloudy day, right? How warm is it on a cloudy day? You take whatever this is, and 1/3 of the sun was struck and covered. You are now coming into what? Extreme cold. It's not going to last. We're going to read. There's going to be this like 7 times heat that's going to come. I'll wait till I get there. But right now, whatever this is, it's going to be this period. And here's what you have. This extreme cold in the midst of what? A famine. And people today still live it, but we can recognize and see it. You're going to have to make a decision. Am I going to heat or am I going to eat with the limited resource that I have? If anyone's ever been there, and I've done some backwoods, deep in the woods, bitter, cold, 0-degree stuff, I always know I get to get out and get back out. I always know that's going to happen. But I tell you what, there's been times where I've been out there and it's 0 degrees. And I'll tell you what, if you've ever been that cold, you'll never know what warmth feels like. You will not think about food. It won't even be on your mind. All that you think of is, I want fire, because my hands are numb. And there's a place you go, if I don't get these hands warmed up, I'm going to lose digits on these things. And here is what's going to happen. There's going to be this cold for this period. Man's going to have to, limited resource, heat or eat, and yet still we come. It's temporary. It's only 1/3. Once again, God's crying out, grace, grace, grace. In verse 13, and I looked, and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe. Because we got 3 more to go. To the inhabitants of the earth, because of the remaining blast of the trumpet of the 3 angels who are about to sound, and hence the woe, woe, woe.
You have made the way for us to know you, a path that's straight and bright. By the light of the world.
You've been listening to Light of the Word. Pastor Ray's digging into the book of Revelation. As there's much to learn from this prophetic book of the Bible, Jesus is described in a peculiar way in this book. He has white hair and flaming eyes. He sounds fierce, but someone to be amazed by and revered. Revelation is a classic case of showing God's power, His authority, and how everything and everyone is in subjection to Him. His heart is for people to choose and accept His saving grace. but not everyone is willing to do so. And with that, there are grave consequences. If anything, this book of the Bible is a striking reminder that people need to be saved from themselves, and Jesus is the only way. Don't let an opportunity be missed to tell your friends, your neighbors, or your co-workers about Jesus' salvation. They may not want to hear it, but to reject what Jesus is offering is deadly. If you'd like to talk with us about today's teachings, you can call 443-995-3282. That's 443-995-3282. We have additional resources on our website, including a great devotional that goes alongside this Revelation series. Find out more at lightoftheword.info. This has been Light of the Word, illuminating the heart of God.